Hello and welcome, guys, to an episode of the Fabricio Day podcast. We will be discussing all things in MMA that have happened in this last week, and not limited to. Guys, there was heaps of comments. People had put up comments, early comments before the podcast had started. I don't know where they've gone. They've seemed to have disappeared into the ether. So please feel free to repost any of those things or whatever, because I can't see them. SG says, greetings, Fab. And Harry DeLuca says, who do you, I imagine saying who? Shout out to Harry DeLuca. Harry DeLuca will be a professional MMA fighter in the future. Keep your eyes on that name, people. Says, who do you rank as the best all-time UFC fighter fighting armed intruders? Video, Holland, Jones, or Strickland? Jones by a mile. You asked me who the best fighter is that fights armed intruders. The best fighter that fights armed intruders is John Jones by far. By far. And having said that, not only does he have weapons, like weaponized armory, like, machine guns and shotguns and all of that, but he also owns things that can fight autonomously, like a Malinois, for example. So and he would beat everybody else in a fight. So Jones, by far. SG says, am I following along with the Ian Garry situation? I am following along somewhat. It's just an interesting thing. Like, I actually was going to discuss it more along the lines of him going up and fighting Strickland, because I think like there are some really good guys that I think would do really well at middleweight that are welterweights at the moment. Ian Garry probably being one of them. I think Leon Edwards, are probably going to end up at middleweight anyways at some point in the future. Maybe Rakhmonov himself will probably end up at middleweight. So I'm not exactly sure necessarily. I think like the problem is like what people do in their private lives and how they do it. It is what it is. You can do whatever you like. Give me one sec. Yeah, I think you can do whatever you like, but it's when you kind of pick fights with other people and say shit and blah blah blah, and then you have like this, you draw a massive arrow to yourself. I think that's the problem there. SG says, what are your thoughts on the potential Holland versus MVP matchup? It's funny, man, because MVP, as far as I know, is, let me just check it right now. Michael Page is 36 years old, and Kevin Holland is, and I'm going to get, there's going to be a method to my madness. And Holland's 31. So you can say that it's fair to say that Holland is kind of entering his prime, and Venom Page is probably leaving it. So, yeah, I think that's a tough one. You know what I mean? That's a tough one, because I don't know what MVP is going to look like by the time he gets in there. I was talking with young Harry DeLuca earlier about Tsarukyan and Dariush and the matchup there. And the thing for me, the big thing is also, you don't know, like, you're looking at Dariush and you go, say, for example, you're thinking about the fight, the Gamrot fight. But I don't know, when you get to that 33, 34, 35, 36, everyone's at a precarious position there, because you don't know when they kind of fall off that cliff, or when they've turned that corner where they're no longer great, or they're no longer they're just a little bit slower than what they were, and they've lost a little bit of that pace. And then you have a young guy like Tsarukyan that starts to enter their prime, and maybe if they fight, a year ago, it's a completely different fight. Maybe Tsarukyan enters his prime now, has a fight of his life, and Dariush is just a little bit slower, so you don't know. And so I don't know what MVP is going to look like coming into this fight, to be honest. I think it'll be a very interesting fight. I see MVP at his best, just being a little bit more clinical, a little bit faster, hitting a little bit more crisper and harder than than Holland. So that's my take on that. Bodybuilding News says the Ian Garry thing is so dumb and childish and super amusing. It is. It's also like, I think it's like the fact that he doesn't like kind of lean into it, and that he's trying to argue it, and that, and like, especially I think after the Neil Magny thing, there's not a lot of like who gives a like there's not a lot of people like having a lot of empathy for him, because if you can dish it out like you did to Magny and basically calling him a child abuser, then you're going to have to eat shit when it's your turn to eat shit, aren't you? Like that's how I see that. As far as like what do I think of it, man? Like I said, privately, I'm pretty conservative on a private level, but as far as what people should be allowed to do, man, I don't give a shit. Like I don't really care. But I think it's when he's trying to argue it and he's trying to suit people instead of just leaning into it and just being like, yeah, fuck it, well, what? You know what I mean? So what? There's all sorts of characters in MMA that are criticizing him or whatever. A lot of fighters have open relationships, and like, I don't think a lot of the fighters will be like, glass houses and all that. I don't think a lot of them would really go down that route with it if they could help it, because there's all sorts of shit that goes on in there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think a lot of the guys that you're watching on the screen are exactly what they pretend to be. So I think that what's funny is that he's trying to like argue it with people and threatening to sue people and that kind of thing. And that's what kicks it off to the next level every single time, and people have less and less empathy for him. SG says the ex-husband living with them is interesting. Yeah, I don't know how that works. I can't imagine many people being cool with that. Harry DeLuca says MVP versus Wonder Boy would be mad. Yeah, I think to me that would make more sense than Holland versus MVP. But I think Wonder Boy is probably wanting to have one last kind of run, I think, at it, and I don't think that it'll help him to fight MVP. But I think that'd be the big fight to make. That'd be the fight that would get bums on seats, so to speak. SG says Tsarukyan has got a hell of a lot of experience for a guy who's only 27 years old. Yep, absolutely. That's what we were talking about earlier. I think the odds are very like, I don't think there's that much between them. But again, I don't know what Dariush is going to look like coming into this fight. I don't know what he'll look like. I think that otherwise, if Dariush is at his best, but Tsarukyan being so young, he does improve. Like young Harry was saying earlier, he does improve a lot between fights. So you don't know what these guys are going to look like. It's one of those situations. Is Arman going to come into his own for this fight, and Dariush is going to be a little bit below what he usually, a little bit less than what we're used to seeing? In which case, I think that Tsarukyan will win. If Dariush is the Dariush that beat Gamrot, I think he'll beat Tsarukyan over 5 rounds. Whatever happened to Gregor Gillespie? Gregor Gillespie got knocked out against, I think he might have had one other fight. Let me just check. But I'm pretty sure he got knocked out by Kevin Lee, and that was it for him. He was a hell of a good fighter. But again, he's another guy, a perfect example of a guy that's come into the UFC. He's already 36 years old. So yeah, he lost to Kevin Lee, and then he beat Carlos Diego Ferreira, who's no joke. Beat him in the second round by TKO, but we haven't really heard from him after that. Again, man, you're talking about this is another thing. When you get to those ages, like it only takes you to have 1 or 2 injuries before you like if you get injured at 34 years old, you could be out for a year. It's not the same as being injured at 35. So you got to really take the fights when you can. And I don't know what's happened to him, but he was a guy that came into the UFC relatively late, like relatively thin. I'm pretty sure Harry, that what's his name? Tsarukyan, you asked about Tsarukyan. So, Harry, let me get the question that Harry asked. Harry says, what's Arman's grappling background? Did he grow up wrestling freestyle at a national level? No, I don't think he did. I think he came up playing like ice hockey or something like this. Let me see. He did freestyle wrestle in the sport, but then he went into ice hockey. So here I can see it here. In his youth, Tsarukyan started freestyle wrestling and fared well in the sport, but got interested in ice hockey later and continued playing it for 10 years. When Arman was nearing adulthood, he was forced to stop hockey in order to aid his father working in construction. But having said that, he does hold a rank of Master of Sport in MMA and a Master of Sport in Freestyle Wrestling. So a Master of Sport generally means you had a podium finish at Nationals. So this is high level. That's a high level, regardless of where he did that. I think he might have done that out of Armenia or somewhere like that, which uses a similar system, but it's still a high level. The Armenians wrestling is very, very, very high level. So I think it was like a little bit checkered as far as his grappling is concerned. But but here, October 1st, 2023, Tsarukyan won the expert middleweight division of Naga Los Angeles on October 1st, 2023, submitting all three of his opponents. So he's a very high level grappler. Very, very, very high level grappler. Cooper Marion says, I don't think Tsarukyan is aggressive enough to beat Benil. I feel like Benil does great in a tit-for-tat exchanges and Arman isn't going to press like Charles. I don't know. I don't know what these two guys are going to look like. I kind of go backwards and forwards over. I don't think that Arman is... Yeah, I mean, Arman could spark him and take him out of there, but I don't think that he should be the difference in odds that he is over Benil. I definitely would favor Tsarukyan just because of the age and his changing between fights. But if I had to bet like this, I look at Benil and I think, I don't know. Look, I don't know. I look at Benil and I think the way that Gamrot and Tsarukyan had the grappling exchanges and they couldn't get the better of him, and Benil does have tidy hands, and then Gamrot couldn't get the better of Benil either grappling. So if anything, Benil had it his way against Gamrot. I see that could be quite a bit of trouble for Tsarukyan over 5 rounds. But Tsarukyan's a monster too, so this is a hard one. The only fight that I would bet money on, but the odds aren't good to bet on, is Punahele Soriano. I'd say he bashes the guy he's going to fight. Cooper Marion says, but he is young, so I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and levels up as he's getting better still. Yeah, I think so. That's one of the X factors with young guys. You know what I mean? You don't know how much they improve in between fights. That's why someone like Bo Nickel being able to sit out for a little bit and get his striking up to a level that is the same as his not the same, but that is closer to his grappling rather, is going to help him a lot. There's no point rushing, because say Bo Nickel fights a couple more guys that are on the fringe top 15, but then he's got to fight guys that are already made, and it could be a case of too fast, too much too soon. And I think that's what happened with oh my God, what's his name? Aaron Pico. I think that's what happened with him. You get to a position where like you're going to have to go up the ranks, and everyone says he's a bust. He's not a bust. He's actually got good record, but I think that his grappling credentials and even his boxing credentials, and both of those things coupled together with his pancreation background, if you go into the sport like a little bit too green experience wise, it's going to be hard, because the guys that you're going to fight are going to right off the bat be very, very good. Even Bo Nickel, like Jamie Pickett, people act like he's not good, but for your like 4th fight or something in your pro career, it's you're fighting a guy that's had a lot of MMA fights, man. Jamie Pickett's had 23 MMA fights. He hasn't won them all. He's not a world beater. I'm not pretending that he is. He was on a 0-2 run again when he got to Bo Nickel, and he's been 0-4 and probably cut from the UFC now. But still, like, Jamie Pickett was Bo Nickel's 4th fight. You know what I mean? Like, and not many people fight a Jamie Pickett in their 4th pro fight. No, not many people do. and win the way that he did. The problem there is, who do you fight next? You know what I mean? Then who do you fight after that? And I don't think Bo Nickal's ready for some of the upper end guys. I really don't know what happened to my comments. If anyone can shed some light on that as to what happens to the comments, why they're not on there anymore. But that's just me. Yeah, like Aaron Pico, when I'm talking about him, because he's a guy to definitely watch. I remember when the Bellator signed him, and there was big talk about who was going to sign him. And you're looking at him, like he's got a few losses on there, but he's a very solid fighter. He's a very good fighter. And the Jeremy Kennedy loss was a shoulder injury. I don't really think it was a loss per se. He's a very, very, very good fighter, you know, very, very, very good. He just kind of ate shit with a few losses, then was unlucky with a shoulder injury, but he's a very good fighter. Very, very, very good. I just think, again, sometimes you're kind of caught up in that situation where your experience outside of fighting, it means that you're going to end up having to fight good guys. That's why sometimes when I do have the opportunity to work with guys, I say to them, man, you have to make sure you're ready, you know what I mean, across the board, because you don't know who you're going to be fighting. Heath Perry says, I'll go this way. Harry DeLuca says, what's your prediction, Rob versus Costa? I think Rob smashes him. I don't think that I don't think Costa's even going to touch him, to be honest with you. It'll look sort of like the Vettori versus Rob fight. I don't see it being close. I don't see the weapons that Costa has to bring to the table that are going to bother Rob. I don't really see it. The one thing both Vettori and Costa can do is take a beating. I'm not disparaging either guy. I just don't see that. I don't see Costa being able to deal with the jab and the speed of Rob. I think the jab's just going to cut him up all day. I don't see any way of Costa being able to slow Rob's movement down with any sort of regularity throughout a fight. You know, I just don't see it. And I don't see him being able to land combinations on Rob whilst Rob is moving. I don't see this happening either. I would struggle to see a path for victory for Costa, to be honest with you. I don't see him. I don't see him being able to wrestle Rob. I don't see him having the movement to match Rob or to catch Rob out. He does have the ability to take a shot and return one, and he does have a nice high guard when he wants to use it. But other than that, outside of that, I don't think it helps him. You know, I don't think it helps him. Rob's not going to fight out of southpaw, and Costa tends to kick the closed side a lot more than he kicks the open side via left body kick. So I don't think that's going to bother Rob. If anything, that's going to mean that it's going to be easier to catch his kick. I don't know that he'll stop Rob from taking him down, especially because he doesn't have the speed to get out of the way of the jab. So the hands have to come up, and I see Rob taking him down. If he wants to. So I don't know. I don't see any way for Costa to win that one. Save for a lucky shot, you know, if he lands something. But then Rob's got a good chin as well, you know, so I don't know. Heath Perry says, prediction for Strickland versus Dricus. I think Strickland wins. I think Strickland wins. I think, but you're always wrong about Dricus, eh? So I think Sean is a bigger guy than people think he is. He's a big boy. I think that Dricus is a big guy too, but I think Strickland's bigger than people think. I think his grappling is really good. He's not easy to take down. He's very hard to submit. And he's tidy, dude. He's very tidy with his striking. He's very tidy. And he comes forward and he tries to pressure. And I think Dricus can take a shot. And I think those first 3 rounds, it's going to look a lot like the Cannonier Strickland fight. But I think that Strickland has learned a lot since that fight. And so I think that he's going to be able to apply certain things better in that fight than he did to Cannonier. I still thought that he got the nod over Cannonier. Watching that fight, I thought that he won, but it's whatever. It wasn't a robbery or anything, but I thought that Strickland won. But I feel like Strickland could have won clearer, if he had just done a couple of little things, like really like put the foot down, pedal to the metal a little bit more at the end of each round. I think he would have won that quite clear. And I think that that's what he'll do versus Dricus. I think Dricus is going to try and mix it up, and he'll probably be successful in the first couple of rounds. But Strickland is very hard to put away. Not many people have put Strickland away. Dos Santos, I think, with that spinning wheel kick, put him away. Pereira put him away, and I'm pretty sure that's about it. He's had a decision loss to Kamaru and a couple of others, but he's improved a lot, and I don't think Dricus can do that for 5 rounds. SG says the UFC 297 tickets are going for 800 plus. I think the later rounds favor Strickland, but the DDP we saw against Rob looked like a different DDP. Yeah, but it's different. Like, it's very different kind of fighters too. They're different kind of fighters, and I won't go into too much about what I think with the Rob and DDP fight. I'm not going to talk about that too much, but I think that Strickland is very, very savvy, man. Very, very smart, and it's hard to do that for 5 rounds. It's hard to blitz in and out, take shots off Strickland, maybe get a takedown or 2 if you're lucky, and finish the takedown. You got to finish the takedown too without Strickland getting back to his feet, and then do that for 5 rounds. And Strickland's going to keep coming. He's going to keep coming, and it's going to be difficult, man, because you see some of the other fights that he's had, and he got pieced up on the feet by Darren Till. He got hurt in other fights. I don't see him beating Strickland. I really don't, but you never know. Cooper Marion says, I can't bet against Dricus anymore. Every time I thought he'd get smashed, and then he comes in with good tactics and wins again. He looks really weird, but I feel like he understands how to channel his skills and find the win. No, I definitely agree with that. I definitely do agree with that. I don't think it'll be a walk in the park. Like, sometimes, like, fights can finish quick, but that doesn't mean that it was easy. It doesn't, like, it just might mean you hit the dude, but it doesn't mean it was an easy fight, or that, you just smashed him. I think that Strickland can weather the storm of Dricus, and I don't know that Dricus, from what I've seen, there's nothing to suggest for me that he can keep going into the later rounds at a breakneck speed. Like, the speed that he and Rob fought at, the pace that fight was at, in particular for middleweight, is fast. That was a very fast-paced fight, and eventually someone's going to zig when they should have zagged and get caught. And Strickland doesn't fight like that. Strickland doesn't fight like that at all. And Strickland, I think, is going to bring the pressure. Dricus is going to have to answer, and he's not going to want to capitulate a lot of space moving backwards, because otherwise Sean's going to make it worse for him. And I think he's just going to outwork Dricus down the pipe. You know what I mean? And you got to think as well, Sean's style is very efficient. It's very, very efficient. It's a boxing heavy style. Cooper Marion says, I feel like it's either going to be a stinker or one of the most violent fights in a minute. These two line up in a weird way. I'm telling you, I think it'll be similar to the Cannonier Strickland fight. I do think it'll be similar to that. The other thing is, what I do believe over the course of Strickland's later career now, he's starting to understand, like, I've got to win rounds. Like, it's like a 5, like I've said before, it's like 5 matches, 5-round fight is 5 matches. You've got to win 3 to win the whole thing, provide, like, all things being equal, like not one of them's a 10-8 or something. So I think he understands that more and more. Like, he understands he's got to win these rounds. And that's why I was saying, you can go back and check this. Before the fight with Israel, I said, if Sean can win I didn't think he was going to be a grappling thing. I didn't think Sean was going to try and out-grapple Israel, or even be able to be honest with you. Not like that. Not unless Israel fell to the ground or something. But even when people are saying that, you got to think, he dropped Israel, like fucking dropped him, landed a big shot on the chin, dropped Israel, right? And even then he couldn't hold him down and bash him and all of it. So you got to understand how hard these guys like an Israel or a Pereira are to hold down, People don't get that. I'm not saying if they rolled, would Sean be able to tap Israel if they rolled just the two of them doing jiu-jitsu? I think he would. But this is different because you're trying to hold him down. The dude's not trying to grapple you. And even though he cracked him, he couldn't hold him down and bash him. So he won that first round. And then he needed to win 2 more. And he won at least 2 more rounds in that fight. And I think he understands that more than ever. Like, I have to win rounds and I have to win 3 out of the 5. And I think that he will do that. I do think that. SG says, can I see DDP getting a takedown? I can see him getting a takedown. I don't know if he'll hold Strickland down. And I don't know if but I can't see him doing that to Strickland for 5 rounds. I could see him getting Strickland down in the first round and maybe giving him a little bit of a hiding and then maybe repeating something of that again in the second round and maybe giving him another little bit of a touch up. And then in the third round, it's going to get harder. And then in the fourth round, it'll be very hard. And in the fifth round, it will be almost impossible. And Sean just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. And his volume builds and builds and builds and builds. Cooper Marion says, is his frame just makes him impossible to hold down in an MMA context? It just depends also the position that like you kind of get him into, you know what I mean? And where he's at. Like, if you haven't put him flat on his back, it's going to be very difficult, man, because he can just frame, you know, and then his center of gravity changes. So it's very hard like that. Heath Perry says, who do you think should headline UFC 300? And what do you think about O'Malley versus Vera? I think O'Malley will try to kick his legs off. Vera will try and knock him out in the later rounds. I don't know about headlining UFC 300. I don't really know, like, what's happening with the McGregor thing. I don't know, man. I don't know what big fights where everyone's like kind of looking forward to see. I really don't know, as far as, nor do I care, like, really who's going to headline 300. And what do I think? I think O'Malley's going to just be out of range with Vera, and he's just going to hit him. He's going to touch him. He's going to move. And I don't think Vera's going to really touch him. And I think that O'Malley's just going to fight from the outside, land shots, kick more with him. He's going to kick more to avoid Vera being able to kick him. And he'll win a decision. That's how I think it'll go. SG says, it's got to be terrifying having a guy walking you down when you're gassed. Man, I hadn't rolled properly, right? Just rolled jiu-jitsu, and I'm old, man. I'm not old, but I'm older. So I'm 43 years old. I'm going to be 44 next birthday. And I hadn't rolled for a little bit, and I went back. I've been in the gym anyways, and I rolled with the boys the other day, and we were just like fucking moving, right? And just doing some guard stuff, like rolling hard, but nothing amazing. And dude started passing my guard, and I was framing and moving, and my shoulders and that were burning, and I was already gassed, like so quick like this. And then I recovered and I was all right afterwards. But still, it surprised me, you know, it just caught me out how I didn't want to be there because I was just gassing out. So if you're fighting someone, dude, and they're okay, you know what I mean? They're all right, and you're gassed. It's not just terrifying. It's like you want out. You want to quit. You know, this is what is scary with someone like Sean. He's just going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, and you want to quit. Harry DeLuca says, do fighters ever get paid in Bitcoin or any alternative currencies, or is it always in US dollars? Harry DeLuca says, Odell Beckham Jr. of the NFL gets paid in Bitcoin. As far as I know, and anything that I've ever been aware of, fighters were getting paid in US dollars, but I don't know if now something's different. But this is not new, by the way. Like back in the day, Michael Jordan, he took shares instead of cash, or, you know, half or whatever it was with Nike back in the day. And he told Charles Barkley to do the same thing. And I don't know if Charles did it or not, but they did that. So that's happened in the past. And it wasn't just Michael Jordan that did that. There were a lot of guys that have done that, not necessarily in with give me 1 second because I'm trying to look up this dude. I can't remember the guy's name. Oh man, what's that? Yeah, there's been like actors and artists that have taken shares on Facebook, whatever. What's that guy? The Korean American dude. I'm pretty sure it's Korean American. I can't think of his name. That did the mural for Facebook, and he opted to get paid in shares as opposed to thing. So a lot of people have taken that route long before Bitcoin. David Chong, that's his name, something like this. Yes, yeah, he got paid in shares of a company, and back then, I don't think it would have even been close to what he thought it was going to be. I think he even said it by his own admission. He didn't think it was. He just said, yeah, whatever. Harry DeLuca says, I think McGregor mentioned after his Alvarez fight that he wanted to start being given stock points for his fights. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think he wanted that. I don't know if the UFC gave him that. I really don't know. Or David Cho or David Chong. Yeah, something like this, the guy's name. And same deal. But there's been a lot of guys that have taken that in the past, like with Nike or with Reebok or with whatever. Oliver Ekman says if Ben Askren wouldn't have gone for that takedown, he would have won. That's going to be on your obituary, Oliver Ekman. SG says we should get paid in barrels of oil or beaver fur. Beaver fur would be a good one. Or salt. That's another one. Heath Perry says, how do you figure out training schedules for fighters in and out of camp? And does it differ from fighter to fighter? Cheers. How do you figure out training schedules for fighters in and out of camp? And you got to figure out, like, you're trying to achieve something, right? So you got to break it down and go, what are the components that I need to meet? What are these components? Like if you were to train any other sport, like there's components of fitness that have to be met. There are skill components that have to be met. So you break that down and then you work backwards from that, addressing like the KPIs that you have to meet, so to speak. And the fighters to fighters, it depends, because there's going to be fighters that are going to be lacking in one area and doing well in others. But in general, with me, when I've dealt with guys, we do the program together. We'll have a program that we do, and we are about to actually set one up right now. So we have a program that we do. Everyone does that program. But people have individual differences in and of themselves, innate to you. Like, so you don't have to necessarily go and make a huge difference. When you deal with a person at a personal level, it's different. You deal with each person as an individual. But even if you can have two boxers do exactly the same program, and one of them will be a power puncher and the other one will be an evasive fighter, you know what I mean? And you could have trained exactly the same program, but your natural skills are going to take you in one way or the other. But in a short answer to that question, it is, just looking at what are the things that we need to meet. And you can put it down really simply, like you have to be able to grapple, you have to be able to strike. Then you can break that down even further. Then you have to do your wrestling, your jiu-jitsu, your MMA type of grappling. You have to be able to box, I think, is a massive component that I don't think people spend enough time on. That's by far it's the most efficient form of striking as far as like energy output, and also it's got the highest amount of knockout ratios. Even now in MMA, it's always going to be boxing. Then you got to do everything else as well, and so you got to figure out how you're going to do it. And then the biggest thing is not that. The biggest thing is let's make sure that we keep focus and stay for the course, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I want to go and do this and da 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 da. And you got to have clarity of vision with your goals. This is more important. So now we got, Harry DeLuca is one of the young fellows that's training now. We got another guy, Trent, who's not on here. I don't know where he is. No, he's not on here now. He's a very good one. We've got another guy that's fighting, that's playing professional rugby league, that's going to leave soonish to fight as well. And they have different trajectories of how they're going to get to that goal. But once they're all in it, I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but you've got to achieve a certain level of grappling before we can even consider you being ready to fight. Then you've got to also have a certain level of striking. So you're going to have had to do X amount of amateur boxing or kickboxing fights before we even consider it. Once we've got those things down pat, that also is going to take care of the fact of, are you able to commit? Do you even want to fight? This is a hard way to make a living. This is a hard lifestyle. Are things in your life in order? Does your family support you doing this? Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult if you're being pushed and pulled in 10 different directions. So all of these things have to be figured out. And so that's where a lot of it comes into play, like it's not so much all these different programs and this and that and the other. It's understanding that and then having clarity of vision for what you're doing. Anthony B says, is coachability a sign that a fighter has a lot of potential? I mean, coachability is important, but you might not have the talent. You might be really coachable, but not really have the talent. So it's not one or the other. It's got to be a bunch of different things. And then some guys aren't that coachable, but they're just super, super talented. Oliver Ekman says, hey, Fab, what did you think of Jacob Malkoon's last fight? I thought Jacob was going to absolutely smash Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage is not without talent. I say this, no offense, Cody. Cody Brundage is not without talent, but he's got a way of snatching fucking defeat from the jaws of victory, I don't know how it is that he's not better than what he is, because he is talented. He comes from a sporting family. He's got a wrestling background, and I just feel that he probably lacks clarity of vision. Do you know what I mean? He probably lacks, I don't know what it is, because he should be better than what it is. But I thought Jacob was just going to fucking smash him. I thought the first round might be close, but Jacob he's much tidier stand-up. He's a much tidier striking, much, much tidier boxing. And he's a current high-level grappler. This is a big difference. A lot of times you're fighting a guy and he was an All-American, but he was an All-American 10 years ago. Jacob's jiu-jitsu is current. It's good. It's good currently. And this is a thing. So I thought that Jacob was going to absolutely smash him, What do I think about what exactly? I thought Jacob was all over him, and, and then what happened. SG says, what are your thoughts on youngsters wanting to become professional fighters? Is this something you would encourage or discourage? Ask Harry what I think, because Harry's actually one of these people that we're looking after now. But it depends. When you're it depends how young you are, and it depends what background you have, and it depends on so many things. Depends how much talent you have as well. Generally, if I'm working with someone, say someone's training with us, you will know right there and then. You will know right there, if this guy can fight or not, or if he has physical abilities to be able to fight. Then if you're working together and you're just training, generally what I say to people is, oh, you want to be a professional fighter. Let's say the guy has minimal background. It depends. If you come in and you say, I want to be a pro fighter, but I just came back from World Juniors, I got a top 10 finish, I'm 20 years old, then it's different again. But even then, you're still going to have to work on your boxing. You're still going to do your jiu-jitsu and everything. So we're going to find out real quick if you and that person click. Then the other thing I'm going to ask a person is, do you have a means of making money? Because you're going to have to train full time. You're going to have to do an apprenticeship in fighting for the next 4 or 5 years. How are you going to make money? How are you going to live? Do you live with your parents? Is your girlfriend all right with it, or your boyfriend all right with it, or whatever? What are you going to do? You know what I mean? How are you going to make money? So generally, I want people to have finished their degree or finish their trade or be very close to finishing their trade, because you're going to have to train full time. And you're going to have to put in huge amounts of effort or anything. And this isn't just with fighting. This is just with any sport, really. And And once you've achieved all of those things, then we can talk. So you need to build your credentials in the sport that you're lacking rather. So say, even if you were a great jiu-jitsu guy, you're still gonna have to learn to wrestle, you're still gonna have to learn all the stuff that's next to MMA, right? So, and you're gonna have to figure out a way to make money and still come to every single schedule. So whether that's encouraging or discouraging, I don't really give a shit. It's more about being realistic, because I'm not going to put someone in there to get hurt. That's my opinion. That's just how I am with stuff. I don't work with big groups of people. I work with small groups of people, only a couple people at a time, maybe 4 or 5 maximum. And you need to understand, like, you can't, if your objective is you're 22 years old and you say, man, I want to have 4 or 5 houses by the time I'm 25, man, go work in finance then. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably going to find that you're going to be training full-time, paying to compete in jiu-jitsu comps, maybe doing some amateur boxing or amateur kickboxing or whatever you're going to be doing. And you're going to be paying for a long time before you're actually fighting and making money like you would any other apprenticeship. You're going to spend about 4 years just being an apprentice, with how I see things. Other people might have different fucking things. SG says, fighting seems to have a larger downside than upside for the average fighter. Yeah, it's massively downside. That's why I just finished saying all the stuff that I said. And I think it's not even for the average fighter. Even if you're a good fighter, even if you're a world champion, like, it's still, like, let's say you're still making money at 40, from fighting. You're making a decent living. Let's say you're making $500,000 a year from fighting, not from other shit, from fighting when you're 40, like, which is fucking rare. You'd be 2-3 people in the world that actually doing that. Even then, what are you going to do after that? It's hard, it's a real hard thing. And then you're disproportionately rewarded for what you're doing. Like, you're not out there curing cancer. You're not saving children. You're not fucking building anything. You're just fighting, and you're getting paid because, good for you, you're getting paid for a skill that's not really transferable to real life. And then when you hit the real world, even people go, "Oh, I'll commentate, or I'll become an actor." I don't know, whatever the fuck they think, And you go, yeah, but you understand how disproportionate your pay is to this other skill. Like, you're going to have to put in a shit ton of effort, more effort than you did in fighting, because you were good at it. Like, you're just naturally gifted at it. You're going to have to put in more effort than you did into fighting, into this new thing, and possibly earn less money. And that is a big head fuck for a lot of people, a big, big head fuck that happens post their athletic careers. Not just fighters, like football players, whatever it is, soccer players, whatever. The difference with some of the guys, like that play in the NBA, NBL, or football, Major League Soccer, anything, European leagues, the money that they make in those sports is huge. You can't compare it to fighting. You cannot compare it to fighting. Oliver Ackerman says, all right, real question now. What did you think of the Bobby Green and Arman scuffle? I don't know enough about it. It just seems like, I don't know. Like, I think that it's not hard to get into a fight in those lobbies and hotel rooms and fighter things, because everyone's like walking around, everyone's there safe. And now in the day and age of like media and Twitter and all that shit, and especially people that probably know people that train together, it's easy to kick something like that off if you both want to. But I don't know what happened. I really don't know. If somebody could shed more light on it, by all means do so. I heard like bits and bobs, you know what I mean, that it was Bobby Green that the guys walked up to or something like that. But I don't know what that means. Cooper Marion says Cody Brundage has Magomed Ankalaev syndrome. Nah, dude. No. Magomed Ankalaev is leagues above Cody Brundage. Like, Cody Brundage should have more success like Magomed Ankalaev does, but nowhere near, man. Like, Magomed Ankalaev wins fights. People like know, like, fuck, this is going to be a fight. Whereas Cody Brundage, people know they're going to beat him, and he shouldn't be. Like, he should be a harder fight. Oliver Aikman says the Jacob question was a joke. When you streamed that event, about 30 people asked about the fight. Aha. SG says, what does a training schedule for a fighter between fights look like? I've heard Charles say that it's a very demanding and rough lifestyle. Yeah, I think it depends, man. I think all fighters are different and there's different times in their careers. But I look at it as no different to any other sport. I think that in between fights, so say, for example, say you fought in June, right? And you go, okay, I'm not going to fight again until December. So then I'm going to have 2 weeks off after my fight, because you do need recovery and you do need some time to rest and let your body heal and spend some time with your family or whatever. So you take 2 weeks off after a fight. So let's say your fight's in December. Mid-October, you go into training camp, so to speak, something like this, but the rest of the time, so you don't know who you're going to fight. You just know that it could be whoever and blah, blah. But the rest of the time, you got to be able to sit down with your coach or coaches and have enough trust and respect in the process. I'm not saying this, you have to do this, by the way. I'm not fucking saying you have to do this. You can do whatever the fuck you want. With me, when I work with people, this is what has to be done. Otherwise, I don't want to do it, Then we sit down and we go, all right, man, these are the areas that are lacking and these are the things we need to work on. And sometimes it might just not be even fight related stuff. It could be fitness related. It could be shit that, man, you got to sort stuff out with what you're doing with your money because you can't be doing whatever. You can't be taking fights for money, whatever it is. Every fight is different. Every situation is different. So, but let's just talk about from a physical training perspective. Then you sit down and you go, listen, dude, we really need to work on these stuff, jiu-jitsu stuff, whatever. So we'll do that. We're going to add another day of kickboxing in. We're going to do more technical stuff from a wrestling perspective. And you just have to add these building blocks. Now, you don't have to be training your hardest, but that's still grind. That's still a grind. 4, 5, 6 days a week of training. Bam, 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 bam. Could be a fitness thing that you need to make sure that keeps going. So it's not that easy to keep that train going. Hence why you get a guy like a GSP or someone that was able to be a champion for a long time. It's because they were able to keep doing that. And they're still listening, they still have their coaches, they're still listening and they're still doing that. If you do that, you're going to go far. You know what I mean? It's going to be a tough, ask if you're not improving in leaps and bounds between your fights. And that requires a lot of work. Anthony B says, have you ever known amateur fighters who never went pro that you believe could have done really well there? There's heaps of guys, dude. There's fucking more guys than not, if that makes sense. There's heaps of guys, like so many guys that would have, should have. There's more of those guys than guys that make it by far. B. Johnson says, maybe Strickland was right when he compared a fighter to a prostitute. I'd have to see the exact quote. Oliver Aikman says, are you guaranteed to end up like Muhammad Ali at an old age after fighting? I don't think you're guaranteed to end up like anything, but I think the problem is, dude, that when you talk about, take Muhammad Ali out of it, you don't know how most of the people end up because you just never see it. You see a few older guys that fight that might still be in the limelight that are fine, and you go, fuck, that's all right. Then you see one or two that aren't, you go, oh my God. But the majority of guys, you have no idea how they end up. You never see them. You'll never see them again. They fought in the UFC or they fought in boxing and they work in a Kmart and you never ever see them again. Harry DeLuca says, is there much security separating fighters in these lobbies and stuff? Yeah, the UFC has a proper good security team, but if you're in the lobby and you just kick it off right there and then, there's enough time for you to have a fight. But the security, I have to say, the UFC security team is really, really good. They're not like the proper security guys I have. They're like ex-military guys and that. They're like legit dudes, they're not mucking about. They're not There are guys like there's guys there that like have seen some shit. You know what I mean? That are doing security there, like the head of security and that they know what you're going to do before you do it. Like they know like your demeanor. They'll see your demeanor change. They know your body language. They're not dumb. Like they'll be there quick. Now, if it's just in the hotel lobby and there's no UFC security and it's like, you know, Johnny that's studying economics at uni and does this at night, and then he's going to try and separate Tsarukyan and Bobby Green, there's going to be problems for him. But in general, like, yeah, you can get it on if you want to get it on, but like generally people don't. Like I'm saying it's easy for you to get into fights if you want to, but generally people don't, man. Everyone just wants to go there, make weight, get paid, and go home, you know? Um, Cooper Marion says, I just meant he has the ability to mess up any fight in the weirdest way, not comparing the skills more, just weird fights. Yeah, probably, but I still have to push back on you, Cooper. I find Cody Brundage a fucking enigma wrapped in a mystery. Because I like Ankalaev, you have to concede, Cooper, that Ankalaev is still a scary fucker. Like he does have weird endings to fights. I'll concede that 100%, Cooper. But but like Cody Brundage doesn't win fights, man. And he should. He should win fights. SG says, so is it out of the question for a professional fighter to train part-time? Sounds like it's rough on the pockets as they'll spend months without pay. I would say to you, if you're going to even consider training part-time, it's not for you. Do you get what I mean? Like you got to be all in or all out. I'm not one of those people that's going to be like, yeah, that's fucking thing. Maybe you're a super duper gifted guy and you live in a city where there's so much MMA, like maybe somewhere like New York or fucking Vegas or somewhere, that you could work and then train full time still. But there's so many sessions around that you can fit it in. I don't know. But generally, I'd say to you, no. And it depends what you do with your money. Because like a lot of the fighters like live like they're millionaires, but they're not millionaires. They're thousandaires, you know. So it just depends what you do and where you live. Like if you live in Sydney and you earn $200,000 a year, that's not much money in Sydney. If you live in, I don't know, some rural town somewhere or in some different country, if you live in Dagestan, 200,000 US a year is a lot of money, you know. So that also depends, you know, like it just, um, it's, you'd still have to work unless you're one of the very best fighters in the UFC. You'd have to figure out ways to make money. SG says, sound like the UFC security industrial grade Krav Maga trained ex-Navy SEALs. The head of some of that, they are like special forces kind of dudes. Yeah, for sure. Cooper Marion says, Mighty Mouse was training part-time up until after losing to Cruz. Feel like that shows how big of a difference going from part-time and a good but not great fighter to an all-time great. You can't even compare the two, dude. And I don't know when you're saying he was training part-time or whether he was training full-time and working full-time and then he took the full-time work out of it and that allowed him to recover. You know what I mean? I don't know that because that it's not so much the training, but the recovery in between the training sessions and in between all of that really gives you the boost. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing. So I don't know exactly how that worked out with him in the Cruz fight and whatnot. SG says, I've heard that Alexandre Pantoja was driving Ubers up until he got the belt. I believe that. I do believe that. But that, you got to understand as well, like jobs like that you could do. Like say, for example, if you drove, if you go on a training and you got to drive an hour to training and you picked up someone in your Uber, you could do that. That would kind of make sense. You could do that kind of stuff. And therein lies where you could get the extra money. Cooper Marion says, I think that's true. Just really takes away the ability to focus and go all in. Who knows? Pantoja could have been champ years ago if he didn't have to work and train. Yes, I also think that sometimes people don't realize how small those little things are. Like I was talking to one of the boys that trains with us now, just about just having clarity of vision, like just something simple like making sure they were talking about jiu-jitsu comps here, right? So making sure he's a black belt, there's not heaps of black belts in his division, and sometimes he's waiting to see, are other people going to put their name in for the comp, and if so, I'll do it. But I said to him, like, you have to make up your mind. I'm going in this comp. I'm going to put my name down for the comp, irrespective of what anyone else is going to do. That small change in your thought pattern is huge, because one goes from you being not 100% sure, what am I going to do? Should I might compete or not? And that changes the way you train, man. That changes the way you train. That changes the way you speak about what's happening this Sunday. That changes the way your partner and other people see you, everything. If you say, I'm competing on Sunday, you're going to go there no matter what, whether people turn up or not, but you're the first guy to put your name down, whatever. This is a completely different dynamic. And it's small changes like that make a huge difference. So sometimes I think people don't know the changes the small changes, what they have to do. So sometimes you don't have to, maybe you didn't have to drive an Uber. You know what I mean? Like there's just these small changes you make and you go, yeah, I'm in full time. But the difference, dude, especially for a flyweight, between you not having the belt, right? You don't have the belt, and now you're fighting for the belt. The payday that you get as a challenger, just as a challenger, compared to what you were getting before, is fucking huge difference. And then if you win the belt to what you were getting before, huge difference. SG says, also wild to think that a UFC champion can make around $2 million a year taking severe chronic damage, while a bench player in the NBA can have a contract 5 times that. Dude, if you're a UFC fighter, right, I'm just going to tell you this, and you're a champion, you're a UFC champion, and you're making $2 million a year, right, you are doing really fucking well. Not many UFC champions would be making $2 million a year. That's fucking for sure. I can tell you this 100%. UFC champions, like, there wouldn't be many that are making $2 million a year. In fairness to the NBA players, much more people watch the NBA. Fucking much more players watch NBA. The NBA have a strong union as well, and also it's much fucking harder to play in the NBA than it is to be in the UFC. Much fucking harder. The level of athletes is through the roof. Like, it's crazy. SG says Cooper Marion agreed. Anthony B says, what age would you consider to be starting late? I think it depends not so much your age, but what your talent level is and what you've done before that. That's what I would consider it. I'd have to consider those things first, because if you're a good athlete, dude, and you've got talent and you're 20, 21, 22, I don't think it's that late, to be honest with you. Cooper Marion says, I believe Mighty Mouse was really only training part-time, want to say 3 days a week, and still working in a factory, and managed to make it to a title outside of his weight class. I would find that, I think someone's telling Porky Pies there. I don't believe that, Cooper Marion. I don't believe that. I really don't. Sorry if I'm calling Mighty Mouse a liar. I just don't, especially because of who Dominic Cruz was at the time as well. And Dominic Cruz spanked him, but I don't believe that he was training 3 days a week. And especially not with Matt Hume, because I remember the interaction with Matt Hume and all of that, and Matt Hume's not stupid, you know what I mean? There's, from my understanding of it, I think I tend to remember that Mighty Mouse is the only person that Matt Hume said to leave his job. Yes, leave your job and do this full time because you're going to be able to do it. So I think there might be misinformation there, because there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way he would have been training 3 days a week. There's no one that would do that anyways. Like, you wouldn't train 3 days a week to fight in Wollongong fucking knockouts wars or some shit. You wouldn't do it. There's just Like I train 3 days. I train more than 3 days a week, you know? So no, I don't believe that one. SG, when you say you train part-time, it just means more you train every day, but you probably work full-time. There's no way, no fucking way that he trained 3 days a week. Like I said, I train more than 3 days a week for nothing, for no reason, just to not be fat. SG says, imagine getting Ubered by the UFC flyweight champ. Cooper Marion says, I live in the DFW area and I think about how I might get my food served by Jeff Neal randomly someday. Oliver Aikman says, ballpark, what did Rob make as a champion? Mate, I'm not talking about somebody else's finances. SG says, right, the NBA is a multi-billion-dollar institution. Anthony B says, a UFC champion not regularly reaching $2 million is a bit sad, I think. It is sad, but I also think, like, this is my take on this, right? It's sad, but like I said, these skills are not necessarily transferable skills. You know, these are not skills. You're not saving lives. You're not things. So before I get all up in arms about fighters getting paid more, there's a lot of other people that I'd be more interested in paying more to. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, you know, that are, you know, people, social workers that are working with kids in foster homes. I think these people need to be supported and paid more before I worry about fucking paying the UFC fighters more. If you're a dude and you're on $1 million a year, that's pretty good money anyways. You know, I don't think it's the best money. I think they could be paid more, but I'm not up in arms about it, especially when they're not. Do you know what I mean? Especially when I say, oh, I'm not going to fight. I'm only getting 20 and 20 to show. And instead of the other fighters in solidarity going, no, fuck it, right, good for you. They're like, you fucking bitch, sign the dotted line, you motherfucker, look at me. When they act like that, I'll fuck them, man. You know what I mean? Oliver Ekman says, Fab, you should hear this vacuum I'm using. It sounds like a spaceship taking off. I'm sure it's a fucking barrel of fun, Oliver Ekman. I'm sure it's a barrel of fun. SG says, I think individual sponsorships really helped fighters a lot. I'm going to tell you something on that. Like, guys wouldn't, like normal fighters wouldn't be making a shit ton of money because even off the individual sponsorships, it's not, maybe in the US, right? Maybe in the US thing, but you got to think like, how much money are you going to get paid to wear what logo for how long, you know what I mean? And who's going to watch you? If you're a big name, then yeah, but if you're a big name, you're going to be already taken care of. I don't think people realize the guys aren't getting paid the money that you think they're getting paid. That's all I'm going to say. Cooper Marion says, from what I remember, he was basically just trying to feed his family at the time and didn't see the money in it. And it took losing to Cruz to finally convince him to quit his job and go all in. No, I 100% believe that. I fully believe that. But I just don't believe he was training 3 days a week. I just don't believe that because I train 3 days a week. SG says, right, I can't imagine trying to endorse a CBD company in Dagestan. Yeah, it's just hard. Like it's things that don't, like they're not just all transferable to everywhere where you live and whatnot and da-da-da. So it's not like Rockstar Energy Drink is going to pay a guy that's getting paid 3 and 3 to show. Well, how much are they going to pay that guy? They're not going to pay him 50 grand. You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of fighters were saying, like, I got paid more in sponsorship than I did in show money or fight money or whatever. But it's like, dude, you were getting paid fucking 3 grand a show back then, and you lost 3 to show, 3 to win, or 5 to show, 5 to win, and you lost. So you only got paid 5-6 grand or whatever it was, and it's not a lot of fucking money that the sponsors had to pay you. So that's also misleading as well. It's not that you got paid a shit ton in sponsors. You might have got 10 grand in sponsors and all up you walked away with 15 grand. That's fucking nothing. Cooper Marion says, I wouldn't be surprised if he was bluffing, playing it up, but he talked about his life story a lot on a few podcasts, and it really seems like he was not even close to all in before the Cruz fight. I believe that. I do believe that 100%. I do. 100% believe that he wasn't all in until you see, oh shit, I could actually do this. And a lot of the times you get a big wake up call. I'm just saying that if you're saying to me, if because this is a guy that wrestled in high school and all that stuff as well. So I just don't see that somebody would be like, I think I could, I'll just, 3 days a week. I just don't see it. Um, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe he was training 3 days a week. Oliver Ekman says, normally this work is very boring, but with your beautiful voice making the sound, it makes it a lot better. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I'm not necessarily even calling him a liar. You know what I mean? I just think like there's recreation. I'd like to see the 3 days a week like that he did, There's recreational jiu-jitsu guys that train 3 days a week that are in their 50s and fucking do law, you know what I mean? Or some shit. Like it's just not it doesn't seem like a lot. It doesn't seem like enough. It doesn't even seem like yeah, I'd have to see it, dude. I don't necessarily think. SG says, in fairness, Jones fought Gustafsson without a training camp, allegedly. Again, I don't believe that. And in fairness, Jones is also popped for performance enhancing drugs. If we're all going to pretend that he didn't, I don't know if that's what we're doing. But no, from all accounts, from other fighters that I know as well, that have been part of his camp and whatnot, he always trains. He does train. He's not. There's no fucking way in the world. I'll tell you this. He may not have had the best training camp. He may not have trained properly for it. But John Jones is not just a physically gifted guy. You can tell. You can tell when you watch him fight that he understands the game. Like he's obviously a student of the game. He obviously works on his skills. He obviously works on his techniques, and you can see that. Like you can see he's a very technically sound and proficient fighter. So even if he hasn't had a training camp for Gustafsson, I don't believe that he didn't prepare. You know what I mean? Oliver Hickman says he's alive. How dare you, Oliver? Jones has some interesting extracurricular activities, says SG. Anthony B says, you would think every UFC fighter and elite boxer is on PEDs, right, with so much on the line. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much people are on PEDs. All I think on it, a lot of the times I think like the hypocrisy of everything, like you'll catch one guy and everyone, oh, look at these guys are on it. And it's the same people that are on it in shock that somebody else is on it, So I don't know necessarily what the numbers are, what the figures are, but I'd say to be very, very high. Not just, I'd say any athlete. And like I said before, I'd say that anytime you look at one of these situations and it's like, it's impossible, it's unbelievable what he does, are crazy and da 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 da. It probably is unbelievable. It probably is impossible. Probably is crazy without the help of performance enhancing drugs. SG says, what are your thoughts on Usman Nurmagomedov getting popped for PEDs? Does that put the whole camp in a question? I'm a big fan of their camp. I really like watching those guys fight. But regardless of what you want, call it, like this Usman Nurmagomedov has popped. Islam, who's one of my favorite fighters, he's popped. Like he's popped as well. So I'm not saying this. I'm not making this up. This is, you can just fucking Google it. You can see that they did. So you can say whatever you want. It's there. SG says, and does that vindicate Dan Hooker's claim that Islam was using an IV? No, one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. Like Usman Magomedov popping for PEDs does not mean that Islam Makhachev used an IV. It doesn't. It's got no correlation, dude. It's got no correlation whatsoever. But Islam has popped in the past, dude. Islam has popped in the past, and so that is more. That's all you need to know. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like there's a thing that people were like, nah, but it's not performance enhancing. No, but it's not this. No, but dude, is it on the banned list? Are you meant to take it? No. So you were taking it. Yes. All right. And you failed the drug test for it. You know what I mean? I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm not a doctor. SG, none, zero, I'd say. Because I think that in Connor's cases, I think he's pretty open about it, And I think when fighters go out of the testing pool and back into the testing pool, that's kind of weird to me. You know what I mean? So I don't think there's like, I think there's fighters that the testing wouldn't even come into it. Like I don't like. There's fucking. I don't even want to say certain things, but nah, there's fighters that for sure are on it. For fucking sure, dude. For sure. I'm not even going to say who I think. I'm not even going to say that. But it's not even just based off how they look. It's like I said to you, every fucking time you see someone do something like amazing, like just out of this world amazing, like, and people are like, it's so crazy, he came back from a horrific injury and I've never seen anything like it in my you know what it is, it's a strength of his mind, yeah, blah 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 blah, yeah, all of that is true. Now two things can be true at once, and one of them is he's probably on enough fucking gear to kill a small donkey. um A wise man once told me from SG, your body produces testosterone naturally, so taking more testosterone makes you more natural. True story, happened today, actually. Wow. Oliver Ackerman says, like Bobby Green talking about Islam getting popped. Meanwhile, he's popped as well. Yeah, like, dude, fuck, mate. There's so much of that. Like, it makes me laugh every time I hear that. Like, when people go, can you believe that? And I think, like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, think about what you're saying. Like, the same people talking about people getting caught, or this country did that, or blah, blah, blah. And you fucking, it's so ridiculous, so hypocritical. Cooper Marion says, you all ever seen the video of Anderson Silva showing the syringes and fridges in his closet? Feel like someone even made out one of the labels as HGH. No, I didn't. I didn't even see that. Anytime you see these situations and someone's like unbelievable, like, and they're so far ahead of the curve, and people are like, it's and the thing is, dude, it's not like you're comparing, like, say guys are cycling the Tour de France. You're not like the difference with some of these guys and the next batch, and for how long they're dominant, by how much they're dominant against other elite guys that are probably juicing themselves. You can't be like, oh, can you believe that? That's fucking crazy, mate. This guy, and he's natural too. He's natural. He's not, man. It's not like he's cycling against me, who I'm not a good cyclist. I'm not really gifted for it. Blah 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 blah. No, he's cycling against other monsters, other freaks of nature, that are all probably gearing as well, and that's what I find amazing. Same as when you're looking at the guys that run or the guys that fight or whatever, and the guys are in their 40s. They're in their fucking 40s. People are like, it's incredible. He must be a genetic fucking freak. And I think, are we seriously doing this? Because the guy that he's fighting is a 28-year-old fucking genetic freak. You know what I mean? A 28-year-old genetic freak. And this guy, yes, he's a genetic freak, but he's fucking 43. You know what I mean? Or 42 or whatever age, whoever these people are. I'm not saying anyone in particular, and like, then they're like, and then, they did the tests on him, and in the hospital, they said that he had some fucking anomaly in nature that you don't find with anyone unless they take fucking loads of GH, and people are all like, oh my God, can you believe this? This is just incredible. This guy is just a freak of nature. Yeah, all right, buddy. Yeah, yes, I'm sure he is. That's, whenever you see that, that's what it is, I think. But yeah, on that and the rest of the fights and everything for the weekend, I'm still not, I'm not 100% sure who's going to win tomorrow in the main event. I don't know. It's a tough one, that one. I don't know. Arman Tsarukyan is a younger, stronger, meaner guy, but Benil's got the experience. It's going to be hard to beat him over 5 rounds, but I just don't see how that fight's going to go. I just don't know. I don't know what Benil's going to look like. It's very, very hard to say. The only fight that I would lightweights, Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. So that one's off. The one to watch, actually, I'm very interested in the fight in the prelims is Zach Reese versus Cody Brundage, because Cody's fighting this weekend as well. So it's going to be interesting how Zach Reese does in this fight. Because he's not bad, man. Like from what I've seen of him, he's actually quite good. He seems to have decent Muay Thai with some pretty good ground game. I imagine that he's going to beat Cody Brundage, but let's see. I think Punahele Soriano is going to bash Dustin Stoltzfus, and I'm not a fan of this fight. The Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva fight. It's one of those fights that whoever wins, I don't know what you're going to do with it. Yeah, all the other fights are a bit like there's like enigmas to them, Like I don't know what Gastelum's going to look like at welterweight, if he's going to make welterweight. Yeah, I don't. Davison is first time going up into this division too. I don't know what he's going to look like. I don't know if Jalen Turner's going to make the weight. That's how I feel about all of these fights. They're like, I mean, I shouldn't say if he's going to make the weight, but it's more like how's he going to rehydrate? Let's say that way. I don't know if they're going to be okay come fight time. Not necessarily if they're going to make the weight. SG says, like when Rogan said that Yoel's eye tendons were 3 times the size of the average person. 4 times. This is true. Like I'd heard about this already because this happened. I was in the corner for that fight. You know what I mean? And then afterwards, when they were talking about it, they're like talking about the tendons and that, they were 4 times the size of the average person. Oliver Okerman says, do you think John Wayne Parr was juiced? I have no idea. B. Johnson says, put it this way, I would never say about a particular person anyways. B. Johnson says, on an unrelated note, it was unprecedented how quick Yoel developed his skills starting in his late 30s. In fairness, though, Yoel Romero, I will say this, Yoel Romero didn't really start this because what happened, a lot of people don't know this, I actually had what's his name? His coach at the time, Ricardo Laboria, had him on my podcast back in the day. We did some training together. But Yoel Romero, he had his first fight in 2009. So he was already 29 then, but he wasn't. So he would have started his fighting career at like younger than that, if that makes sense. Like, so no, he wouldn't have been 39. He would have been, sorry, I beg your pardon, he would have been 32. So he would have started his MMA training probably at around 30. But in 2000, at 23 years old, he was a silver medalist at the Olympics. So he was well and truly on the way. Now, he has a brother. He has a brother who's a professional boxer and a world champion boxer as well. And he boxed like on and off growing up, so I wouldn't say he started that late either. I think that, again, they're narratives that are built by people to show like, oh my God, but no, he was a very, very exceptional athlete. It would have been interesting had he have won the Sydney Olympics, silver medal at the Olympics in Sydney 2000, and then 2001, 2002 had his first MMA fight. That would have been interesting to see what a young Yoel Romero would have looked like then. Beetlejuice says, Fab just jumped on the stream. Were you and your team ever confronted like the recent Bobby Green situation? Nah, I've never been like in those situations like that, because I think it usually takes 2 to tango, to be honest with you. Like in that, also, I don't carry myself like that. I don't talk shit about other people. I don't act like I am a target, as in like, how could I say to you? I'm a TAFE teacher. I'm a teacher by trade, and I have a little gym. And so I don't walk around like I'm like part of this fucking You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a scalp to take in that sort of world. Like, and also I'm not saying inflammatory shit. Like, I'm not sitting here talking shit about fighters or talking shit about people or any of that stuff. So I don't think that it'd have to be some like really out there kind of situation, like where you'd have to see it coming before it does, or an explosive situation that just happens there and then, like. But even then, there's everyone's doing their own shit. Like, you'd have to go out of your way a little bit. Cooper Marin says, I'd have a harder time believing if you told me almost any pro athlete was completely natural. If people are juicing in high school swimming, there's no chance people getting paid aren't using. I'd say, Cooper, I agree with you. And I'd say that the majority of people are on something. Yeah, majority is huge, man, of pro athletes. When I'm saying majority is huge, like 52% of pro athletes is a fucking big number. Oliver Ekman says, let's see if Cody can throw another win away. I think Cody's going to lose this fight tomorrow, unless an act of God happens. Cooper Marin says, a certain unnamed Cuban is definitely on all the juice, but is still a freak of nature, hyper responder to whatever juice he's got, as there's tons of 43-year-old juicy boys wishing they moved like him. I'm not saying Yoel Romero is on the gear, right? I'm not saying this. Although he did fail a test. But let's say that he's not, right? Yoel Romero is still a freak of fucking nature. Don't get me wrong. Anyone that's in that upper echelon are freaks of fucking nature. Let's be real. That's for sure. Oliver Ekman says, Fab, did you see Turner talk about his fight with Hooker, saying he had mental health issues after because he felt bad for taking years off Hooker's life, but right before that he said he wants to fight Hooker again? Yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about any of that. I can't speculate as to that. Hooker's a fucking tough man, I'll tell you that. That's how Hooker fights, you know what I mean? I think that Hooker will be all right with it. Guys, I'm going to leave now, but please join me tomorrow for the UFC main event. We'll be watching it. We'll watch it together. Join me tomorrow, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Yoel sued USADA for false accusations and won $27 million. Dude, if you believe, it wasn't USADA that he sued anyways. He said that it was that the supplements were tainted, right? And that's who he sued. And if you believe that he won $27 million, my brother, I'm not saying that he was on steroids. I'm not saying that Yoel Romero was on steroids. And if the supplements were tainted, and it was in fact a company, because he'd sued the company, right? And he won whatever it was. But if you believe that he won $27 million and he's still fighting at 46, you're fucking mad. I'm telling you that for sure. I'm not saying that he was or that he wasn't. Yeah. I will say this though. I'm a fucking massive fan of Yoel Romero. Huge fan. Like, really, I've met him in person. I've dealt with him. He's a good guy. Like, I like him. I'm not even shitting on him. And the guy's a fucking freak of nature. I'm just saying, like, if you believe that he got a $27 million payout and he's still putting his body through what he's putting his body through, fuck, and his skull and his brain and that, nah, he didn't win that money. I'm not saying that he was on steroids. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he took anything. I'm not saying that the company, in fact, didn't do tainted supplements. But if you believe that, you're mad. All right, guys. I'll see you later. See you tomorrow, guys. Thank you so much for this. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already and share the channel. Bye-bye.